I acknowledge the traditional owners of lands across Australia, their elders, ancestors, cultures, and heritage, especially the Barramatagal people, a clan of the Darug who first settled the local area over 60,000 years ago. I thank them both for contributing to my personal journey of learning and understanding, and for granting permission to share and take photos of sites that have been included in my presentation today. Behind my house is a remnant forest which has trees that are about 250 years old. These trees likely bore witness to life prior to the European invasion, several conflicts between settlers and indigenous, a quarry, an orchard, and currently a street. If only they could talk.
Just 50 metres behind us is the 5.4 kilometre Purmaway Loop, a trail that highlights both Indigenous and colonial artefacts of significant cultural value. Progress, ignorance and the impacts of time have all impacted these sites, but I'm proud to be involved in their regeneration and maintenance. As a teacher, this role is only going to escalate. Today I'm going to discuss my own journey, thoughts and experiences. I grew up in a nice white house, in a nice white suburb, in a nice white neighbourhood. It was like Australia never existed prior to the nice white settlement. Lessons at school were exclusively based on European settlement, and the only exposure I had to Indigenous culture and learning was from the news, which always focused on the negative. These experiences created a foundation in my mind of unconscious bias towards Indigenous people. Augustinus, Innes and Burns further discussed this in the British Journal of Social Psychology in 1994. The naive opinions and actions of my parents further highlighted my feelings of mistrust and lawlessness that I acknowledge are part of my being and require conscious management for me to be the best person and teacher I can be. From years 3 to 5, my father had a transfer to a semi-regional part of Western Australia. Although the school was about 50% Indigenous and 50% non-Indigenous, my exposure was still very limited and still very influenced. Segregation in both the classroom and in the playground was considered normal and not questioned. Once a week, some Indigenous community members would provide Indigenous education to the Indigenous students, whilst the non-Indigenous students would have lessons related to the white explorers. Hindsight tells me that this was wrong and quite confronting, but at the time no one knew any different. These experiences, together with those back in Sydney and beyond, have influenced my thoughts and actions and are something that I will certainly look forward to enhancing over time. That said, I'm constantly building my awareness, and doing so will make me a better teacher, as mentioned by the United Nations in 2003. One Indigenous person who I know I have increased awareness and appreciation of is Pemulwuy. Until now, my knowledge of his contribution was really quite shallow, cursory, tokenistic and insignificant. Little did I know that many of his contributions took place in this very area. There is a high likelihood that Pemulwuy camped, prepared for battle and travelled through this very spot. Pemulwuy, a First Nations man of Anora descent, believed to be from the Bidjigal clan, was one of the founding leaders in the struggle for Indigenous rights after the invasion. He was well respected and to some extent feared by both the Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. He led some great battles with the settlers, including the Battle of the Third Settlement in Toongabbie, just up the track here. These battles did cost several lives, but they did pave the way for some level of rights and improved humanity for the Indigenous people. Up until his mortal demise, Pemulwuy's contribution was not valued by the colonists. In fact, it was used by some to justify action. Fortunately, this has changed over time, and detailed information which provides a more accurate but not completely unbiased account and perspective. This information can be found in places such as the Australian Museum, which houses the only known original sketch of Pemulwuy, and in collections such as the City of Parramatta Council's archives, and books such as that written in 1964 by Doris Sargent relating to the Toongabbie story. The foundations relating to the importance of understanding and appreciating the Indigenous perspectives and the lessons from it were laid by people like Pemulwuy. Although it has already taken well over 200 years to date and we still have a very long way to go, as mentioned by the Australian government in its publication relating to Indigenous schooling, the importance of Indigenous teaching cannot be ignored. It has been proven that taking this into account in all lessons will enhance the teaching practice and outcomes for all students. Other resources, such as the 8 Aboriginal Ways of Teaching, provide valuable contributions and help in identifying authentic and real Indigenous education opportunities, which can be related to pretty much every subject and component of the Australian curriculum. Furthermore, the differentiation in lessons that are available, together with the related opportunities to enhance integration and open-mindedness, should not be ignored. What is really important to note here is that the consideration of these factors in my teaching is for the benefit of all students, regardless of background. I encountered a real-life example in my prac where I was able to refer to a publication of Indigenous games to generate learning in a student who had recently relocated to Australia with his family. Until that point, he had never shown an interest or engagement. Watching that child learn and grow was the highlight of my practicum. And the fact that I could use this resource to encourage the growth was a gift. Thank you for listening about my journey today. Just undertaking this task is a big part of this. I really am looking forward to learning more about the contributions of Indigenous people in society and integrating these learnings and knowledge and related resources into my lessons to the benefit of both myself and all of my students.